Good morning, friends. This is Dr. Ghanashyam Chauhan. Welcome back in the session of Human Anatomy and Physiology 2. Today we will start the unit number 2. In that we will start digestive system. First of all, what is digestive system? It is nothing but the system which deals with your alimentary canal. What is alimentary canal? It is the passage which starts from our mouth and ends into the anus or rectum, and whatever the problems or whatever the structural and functional disease occurs along with that, so it is called digestive system. And in that there are various terms that we should know. In that, first is gastroenterologist. Gastro means stomach and entero means intestine. So it is the specialist surgeon or specialist which deals with the disease of stomach and intestines. There are various diseases like stomach ulcer or indigestion or ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome of large intestine, piles, fistula, like that various diseases are there. Now in digestive system it involves various organs. There is also one term that we should know, it is called proctology. Proctology is nothing but the study of structure and function and disease related with anus and rectum. Now what is digestive system? It starts from our mouth and ends into our anus. So this whole anal is called as alimentary canal, and also it is called as gastrointestinal tract. It is a tract. It includes various organs. This anal, canal or GIT, it is also called as GIT. It includes various organs. For example, it starts from esophagus. After that, stomach. Next to stomach there is intestine. In intestine there are three parts. It starts from duodenum, jejunum and ileum. After that ileum there is one part, small part, it is called appendix. From that it will start the colon or large intestine. Colon is also called as large intestine. In large intestine there are four segments. In that, first is this is ascending colon. After that, the colon which is horizontal, it is called as transverse colon, and the colon which is again vertical column which is going downward, it is called descending colon, and one colon which is in S in shape, it is called sigmoid colon, and finally that sigmoid colon ends into the rectum. And the external part which deals with the excretion of feces, it is having the anal sphincter, so it is called anus. Anus is the last part of our GIT, gastrointestinal tract or alimentary canal. Now these all are nothing but the main organs. Now we will discuss regarding the accessory organs, means these are the supportive organs which helps in the digestion. What is digestion? Digestion is the process of conversion of complex form into the simpler form. Actually digestion is having two phases. Digestion is nothing but, it is also called as biotransformation, and this biotransformation is also having two types, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is also called as anabolism and phase 2 is called as catabolism. What is anabolism? Anabolism is nothing but the when the smaller elements, when the smaller elements are get converted into the complex elements, so that process is called as anabolism. For example, the formation of the various muscles, formation of the enzymes, formation of various hormones, hormonal proteins, so these are nothing but the anabolic mechanism. And second is catabolism. What is catabolism? When the complex forms are converted into the simpler forms. For example, long chain of a carbohydrate or long chain of fats are breakdown split into the smaller forms of like glucose or like that or fructose. So they are cut in such a way that they can be easily absorbed into our bloodstream. So that's why that process is called as digestion. And digestion will start from mouth and it will end into the anus. From mouth it starts in esophagus, in stomach, in small intestine, in large intestine, and lastly into the anus. So in whole alimentary canal, at various spaces, at various time, the process of this digestion, process of absorption continues. Now here we are discussed with the organs. Now we should know what are the accessory organs. The accessory organs starts from the mouth. Mouth is the first organ, mouth. After that mouth, teeth. After teeth, tongue. After tongue, palates. There are hard palates, and hard palates can be followed by the soft palates. After soft palates, uvula is there. After uvula, there is pharynx, larynx. After that, the glands are here. Here you can see the salivary glands are located. There are 3 types of salivary glands are there. Here you should know the name of glands and also the locations and their secretions. After this, the major organ of digestion is liver. Without liver, we cannot survive. Without liver, not a single particle of our food can be metabolized, can be biotransformed. Digestion and metabolism, actually metabolism and biotransformation are one and the same thing. They are the different words, and this metabolism is the part of digestion. Understood? Okay, so this is the one element, one organ which is very recommended or very required for our digestion or metabolism. Now next is gallbladder. Below this, just under that liver is gallbladder. After that, pancreas. It is just behind the stomach, which you cannot see, which I can see but you can't see. So it is called pancreas. Pancreas also having various secretions, various. See, listen, in the whole alimentary canal, in one day, almost 7 liters of the fluid can be secreted into your alimentary canal. Along, it includes water, it includes food, it includes the acid from stomach, it includes the various enzymes from liver. There are 3 types of enzymes from our pancreas. Also there are various enzymes from our small intestine. Small intestine also secretes the various hormones. After that, the large intestine which secretes the various enzymes. So like that, the whole alimentary it is secreting some parts. Also some buffers can be secreted into our stomach as well. After this pancreas, the next part is peritoneal cavity, which produces the serous medium for holding as a rack. It is serous medium which holds our intestine, it holds our kidney, stomach, liver, and it make it available at proper place. It stuck to the proper place, and it won't allow for its drooping down from its position. So these are the various elements that you should know. Again, we will summarize. This is the mouth, after that tongue, after parotid gland, sublingual gland, and submandibular gland. There are 3 types of glands. After that, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, pancreas behind stomach, spleen is also the other element. After that, liver, gallbladder, small intestine, 3 parts, duodenum, jejunum, ileum. The colon, it starts from the appendix, cecum, ascending limb of colon, transverse colon, descending limb of colon, and sigmoid colon, rectum, anus. So in this fashion, we have discussed the anatomy, the superficial anatomy of our digestive system. Now here we will discuss the basic processes. What are the basic processes of our digestive system that we should know? In that, first is ingestion. So what is ingestion? Here you can see this is the process of ingestion. So whatever food element, drug, water, any sort of thing which we are ingesting, which we are drinking, which we are taking inside the mouth, so that process is called as ingestion. So ingestion occurs through our mouth. It doesn't occur through parenterally, means it doesn't occur through vein or muscle or blood vessels. Whatever thing you are taking, we are throwing into your mouth, it is nothing but the ingestion. Okay, right? Well, so after injection there is secretion, and mind it well, these 6 processes, it can be asked in the examination. Now in case of multiple choice question, no headache is for you, but in the offline examination this point always asked in the examination and you should know. After that, secretions. Now here, now once ingestion has been occurred, after that various secretion occurs in the various organs. For example, in the mouth, the secretions of salivary glands, saliva can be secreted. After that, mucus can be secreted. In esophagus also some mucus can be secreted, and in stomach the secretions of HCl, pepsin, mucus neck cell secretes mucus, gastrin. So these are the various secretions can be secreted into our food, and that food can be diluted and churning process occurs, and it will form a mass, a liquid mass, liquid or semi-solid mass can be formed. Again secretion can be occur from our small intestine. It will secrete various exocrine glands, can secrete various enzymes, and endocrine also secretes various hormones, that we will see later on which enzymes and which hormones will secrete. For example, cholecystokinin and glutamate cell can secrete the mucus, like that. So various enzymes and various hormones can be secreted. Also this large intestine also secretes some secretions. So secretion occurs, some buffers, acid, water, enzymes, hormones. So these all will secrete. What is the quantity? It is near about 7 liter of quantity. And do you know what is the size of this alimentary canal? In normal human being, in normal live human being, it is almost 5 to 7 meter. Might well, it is too much, it is 5 to 7 meter, and in the dead person it becomes 7 to 9 meter. Why it is long in case of dead person? Because it is contracted into the live human being, into the survived human being. The human being which is in survival condition, in that it is in contractile condition, and in the dead condition the GIT can be relaxed. Okay, now the next process is mixing and propulsion. So whatever food material, water, whatever things you are taken, so it can be mixed in here in our stomach. Like when we are developing any building, into that there is one element, there is one apparatus in which we are mixing the sand, we are mixing cement, we are mixing the blocks, we are mixing the water, like that. It is just like that, same thing. Stomach, in stomach the mixing continues, and here the churning process occurs. Churning means mixing and propulsion. Here mixing and propulsion. So here mixing occurs from the mouth, mixing will start and churning will occurs, and it will form a mass, it will form a mass. So here in mouth also the breakdown will continue, the breakdown occurs. So here mixing and propulsion is nothing but the two types of activities will occur. In churning, the breakdown of the food material which is at large size, if you are taking anything, if you are biting by your teeth, so the molar and premolar, what they are doing, they are cutting it into the small pieces. And what is the function of our this tongue? It is mixing properly in the mouth also, and the various salivary glands will secrete their saliva into the mouth, from the mouth. In saliva there is the salivary amylase will start to do the digestion or absorption of that starch from the mouth. Okay, so here the mixing will occur and churning will occur into the stomach. It will form a, now here in the mouth when we are mixing that food, so it will form a bolus. So that mass of food is called as bolus, and that bolus will be swallowed through the esophagus, and it will go forward and it will come into the stomach. Stomach is having two sphincters, one is cardiac sphincter, another is pyloric sphincter. So it will get entered through this cardiac sphincter and it will go into the stomach. Here mixing will occur, churning will occur, and after that it will go into your small intestine. Now here mixing and propulsions. Now again, what is propulsion? Propulsion is nothing but it is a continuous activity. There are the episodes of contraction and relaxation. These episodes are nothing but the propulsive activity. It is also called as peristaltic movement of our food which has been churning foods, and it is also called as motility. So our gastric, the stomach is also called as gastric. So gastric motility is there. Gastric emptying, it will empty into our small intestine, and from this small intestine the process of absorption will start. Okay, and from here absorption, the process of digestion also will start. Okay, so here mixing propulsion means pushing the food forward. That process is called as propulsion. It is also called as peristaltic movement, and it is also called as motility of our gastric or of our GIT motility. And the intestinal internal part is called as lumen, and this intestine is also, this small intestine is called as gut. Okay, here now digestion will start. So when digestion will start, it will start by two processes. It is having two parts, mechanical digestion and second is chemical digestion. So what is mechanical digestion? When we are cutting that food into smaller pieces, so that is called as mechanical digestion. We are making it, split it into the small pieces into the mouth through teeth. We are mixing saliva in that. So that is nothing but the mechanical digestion. Now what is chemical digestion? Whatever food material which has been released to the small intestine, so through the bloodstream, through the mucosal layer, it can be absorbed into your bloodstream, and it will, where it will go for chemical digestion, it will go into the liver. So in liver it will digest, and our liver also will going to secrete, its secretions. What are the secretion of liver? It will secrete the bile into our small intestine. Actually in small intestine there is secretions of liver like bile. From gallbladder also it will secrete the bile, and from the pancreas it secretes the three types of hormones: trypsin, chymotrypsin, and transpeptidase and elastase. Actually 4 hormones are there. So these all 4 hormones will secreted into our duodenum, and here the chemical digestion will start from our duodenum. It is the first part of our small intestine. Don't forget, mind it well, all the names of intestine and all the parts. Just mug up all the parts of our digestive system. It is also very easy, like central nervous system. So here the chemical digestion will be there. So in the chemical digestion will start from our small intestine, and also the process of absorption will also start here. Okay, so here chemical digestion will start. Here the also mixing of various enzymes, for example HCl, pepsin, it also secreted into our this stomach So in stomach also chemical digestion will start. So actually start from the mouth when our saliva secretes salivary amylase. So here also it will start that digestion, chemical digestion. Whenever the chemical is involved, it is called chemical digestion. Means it will start to digest that food. It will start to use that food. So here also HCl will secretes and it will break down the fats, break down the carbohydrate, protein into smaller pieces here. And in intestine also various hormones will, various enzymes will secrete. I have already explained to you. So this is the process which is called chemical digestion. Don't forget, it is very easy. Okay. Now here next process is called absorption, which is very important part of our process. So whatever nutrients, whatever food material, whatever drugs which we are ingesting through mouth, it can be absorbed only through the small intestine and large intestine. About 90% of our food can be absorbed through our small intestine. Remaining 10% from large intestine and very small quantity from our mouth and stomach. Maximum can be absorbed through our small intestine, through mucosa, through apical membrane of mucosa. So here whatever food material is there, whatever nutrients are there, means fats, carbohydrates, the nutrients like multivitamins or various nucleic acids or various drugs. Suppose you are taking paracetamol, simple drugs. So it can be absorbed through our small intestine, and where it will go? It will go to your liver for the metabolism, where the biotransformation will occur. Metabolism will occur by two processes, phase 1 and phase 2, by anabolism and by catabolism. Don't forget. We will also discuss this in next lecture. Okay, I think you understood whatever I am telling. Okay, after absorption there is last process, it is called as defecation. Defecation also called as excretion. It is also called as evacuation of bowel. Now which organ deals with this defecation? The organ is called as rectum and anus. In the internal part is rectum and the external part is anus. What it do? It do the evacuation of bowel, means it would emptying of that colon. Which colon? Sigmoid colon. Okay, and the proctology is nothing but the study of structure, function and disease of rectum and anus. It is called proctology. What are the diseases which are accompanied with this? They are called as piles. Another disease is called fistula, fissure. So these are the three diseases which you should know. Now the material which is undigestible, mind well, the material which is undigestible, waste materials, also the blood vessels, the epithelial cells, worn out epithelial cells, slough out. Slough means we are removing that layer, we are removing that cell, epithelial cell. So that all waste materials will comes into our feces. They are indigestible or undigestible food, and these foods and whatever the material is there, whatever the vital nutrients are there, vital elements are there, they has been already absorbed through small as well as large intestine. Absorption has been completed. Now this is nothing but the waste material, and this waste material are come out through the anus in the form of feces. They are having their characteristic color, it is yellowish in color. Whatever food you will take, but your feces will be yellow or faint yellowish or dark yellowish color, or brown or yellowish in color. It is also called as stool or feces. Mind it well. Okay, and that process is called as defecation or evacuation of bowel or excretion. So in this fashion we have discussed regarding the basic processes of, there are 6 basic processes of our digestion. So in this fashion, with this figure, we have already discussed. Now main divisions of digestive system. So in that, alimentary canal, so it continues muscular digestive tube widening without the body, and it is in contractile condition when we are alive. It digests and absorbs the food particles, whatever be the vitamins or electrolytes or various fibers, proteins, or multivitamins, whatever things are there, so or macronutrients are there, so they can be absorbed and digested. Contain the following organs: mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine. And accessory digestive organs contains following organs, for example, teeth, tongue, gallbladder, salivary glands, liver and pancreas. Circulation of alimentary canal or GI tract. The splanchnic circulation. It includes arteries branching off the abdominal aorta and the hepatic portal circulations. Actually, this splanchnic artery is there, which supplies blood to our intestine, our stomach and our liver. That's why it is called as splanchnic artery, and the circulation which occurs, it is called splanchnic circulation. Actually, the circulation is also specialized according to the organ. For example, portal circulation. What is portal circulation? The blood circulation which can be done by the portal artery to our small as well as large intestine, that is called as portal circulation. And the hepatic circulation is the circulation provided through the hepatic artery to the liver and gallbladder. It is called as hepatic circulation, and combinedly it is called as hepatoportal circulation. It is also called as splanchnic circulations. Arterial supply: celiac trunk, it is hepatic, splenic and left gastric, and the mesenteric arteries, which is superior and inferior vena cava. So this is the blood supply to our GI tract. Lots of blood supply is required for GI tract for its digestion, absorptions and its various functions like secretions of various enzymes, defecations, etc. Listen, there is almost 1/4 of the blood supply occurs to our digestive system after meal. Why it occurs? Because lots of blood required for the whole processes, for its churning, for its cutting, for its mixing, for its chemical digestion, mechanical digestion, for absorption, for digestion, for secretions, for peristaltic movement, motility, for evacuation of bowel, defecation. So that's why whenever we are taking the food after meal, you are feeling like sleep can be induced after meal. Why? What is the reason? Because this is the reason, because it requires 1/4 of total body volume of blood. Means after your meal, whatever meal you are taken, after the complete meal, it will be lunch or dinner, whole blood supply will concentrated towards your GI tract or your stomach or your intestine, and due to which your brain will get less blood supply comparatively. That's why you are feeling like sleep condition or fainting like condition will be there. So you will calm down and just have a rest of half or 1 hour after your lunch or dinner, after meal. But why? Because your alimentary canal required blood supply, too much blood supply for its digestion. That's why what is my suggestion for you? Whenever you are completing your meal, don't immediately go for any work, don't go for immediately walking, because what it will do, suppose after immediate completion of your meal, if you go for walking, what will happen? It will interfere into your digestion. it will produce the indigestion, and which is not good for you. Listen, suppose indigestion will occur, what will happen? So whatever the undigested food is there, either it will come out through your anus, means it will go into fetus feces, or it will ferment into your body, which is another problematic condition, which will produce the gases into your body, and it will produce the flatulence. So for avoiding that, for a proper diet and for proper digestion of your food, after your meal you should rest for at least 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour compulsorily you should do. Don't do any physical exertions. You can do any work which you require your brain, but don't use your body, because your blood supply, your digestive system requires rich blood supply. That is the only reason. Okay. Now histology of alimentary canal or GI tract. This is very important. Here you can see the histology. It is having various layers. It is having 4 layers. First is mucosa. What is mucosa? Here you can see this is mucosa. The internal part of our GI tract is called as lumen. 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 Okay. The small intestine are also called as gut. 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 Okay. Now the mucosa, it is the innermost layer, and it is very hard layer, because whatever the food material we are ingesting through mouth, it is deals with the mucosa. The mucosa is the layer which can be affected. For example, in stomach acid secretion occurs. Our mucosa is so much strong that it is withstand with the acidic pH. It doesn't affect it. Almost 3 to 2 pH is there in stomach. And in small intestine it is almost 7 to 8 pH is there in small intestine. It is basic in small intestine and large intestine, and it is acidic in stomach. So whatever may be the pH change, but it won't affected, and it is called mucosa. Mucosa is having 3 layers, 3 parts. In that, first layer is called as epithelium. This epithelium you will find in case of the small intestine, after that mouth you will find in esophagus, and also you will find in the large intestine. Actually this mucosa is made up of the non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium cells, and these cells are, after 5 to 6 days, they are slough off, SLOUGS, slough off, OFF, means they are removing that old layer and repairment. The new layer has been replaced by the old layer of epithelium. It continue process, it occurs, and after few days new layer will be there, and they are having the tight junctions of cells. For example, in case of stomach, in stomach and small intestine, they require, especially in stomach, they require the tight junctions, means one cell is connected with the another cell of this epithelium in mucosa very tightly closed. That's why they won't allow any leakage. Suppose acid secretion will be there, and if it leak, what will happen? The acid will come out from the stomach. It will do the perforation. Sometimes it occurs, when it occurs, in case of the ulcer, when we are having the stomach ulcer or gas, or we are having stomach ulcer also called as gastric ulcer, or where we are having the intestinal ulcer or colonic ulcer or esophageal or mouth ulcer. In that condition, what will happen? The perforation will occur. So that acid or that material will go through your perforations. Hole is there, small minute holes can be formed, ulcer can be formed, hemorrhoid can be formed, the blood will come out from that ulcer. So that's why this our mucosa should be very strong. It is the primary element. It is just like the border security force. It is just like the BSF. So whatever the enemy will comes firstly in contact with this mucosa. Now after this, epithelial cells, there is the second layer which is called as lamina propria. This lamina propria is the cell which contains the malt also. What is malt? It is mucosa associated lymphoid tissue, means it is good supply of lymph as well as the blood. Okay, and it is made up of the connective tissue, and it is called as areolar connective tissue. Now this, where it locates, you will find it into the intestine, small intestine and large intestine especially, and also you will find in case of the tonsils where they required, and also in case of appendix, in case of tonsils, appendix, large intestine, small intestine, where you will find this malt, mucosa associated lymphatic tissue. What is the role of this malt? They are involved into our immunity function. They are showing the strong immune response against the various pathogens. So that's why these are associated with the immunity. So whatever food material contains any pathogens, they are containing any bacteria, so here the lymphatic system will kill them. They will contain the various phagocytes, so they will kill them. Now after this, lamina propria, which is the second layer of the mucosa. Now third layer is muscularis. So this mucosa muscularis is the third layer of mucosa, and this layer is made up of the tissue. Which tissue? It is called as connective tissue. And this muscularis mucosa is available into the esophagus, stomach and small intestine, and they are also supplied with the blood supply, rich blood supply. So here is the glands of mucosa. Now, and it is the last part of our mucosa, and to this muscularic mucosa it is connected with the submucosa. Now this muscularic mucosa, after that there is submucosa. Now submucosa also rich in blood supply and the lymph supply. This submucosa is made up of the areolar connective tissue, and this submucosa you will find in the esophagus, small intestine and stomach. After this submucosa, there is the next layer which is called as serosa, which is the last part. Now before serosa there is muscularis. Actually muscularis is having the skeletal muscle which they require for their voluntary action, this muscularis. So where it will found? It will found into the part of esophagus, where we are having the habit of swallowing. Swallowing process is also called as deglutition. In combination with the vagus nerve, it allows us to do the deglutition, and for that voluntary muscle we require the skeletal muscle, and the skeletal muscle you will found in case of the muscularis. So that you will find in case of esophagus. Also that skeletal muscle you will found in case of the anal sphincter at the anus, which do the voluntary movement of that anal sphincter for evacuation of bowel, for opening the anus and for closing the anus. So that muscularis, muscle you will found, that skeletal muscle you will found in case of this muscularis. After that, the remaining part, now except these two parts, esophagus and our anus, all over the parts of our alimentary canal, they are supplied with the involuntary muscle, involuntary smooth muscle, and that in that involuntary smooth muscles there are patches of two sheets. One is inner one is called circulatory muscle and outer one is called as longitudinal muscle. So there is band of two muscles. These inner muscles are supplied with the blood, rich in blood supply, and this external called as longitudinal muscle. So except these two organs, in all the GIT you will find these smooth muscles which occurs in our muscularis. And the last is called as serosa. Now mind well, serosa is available in all GIT, in all alimentic canals except one, which what it is called? It is called esophagus. In esophagus you will find adventitia, and except that esophagus, in all GIT, either it may be mouth or our stomach, small large intestine, you will find serosa. Serosa contains the serous membrane, and serosa is also involved into the formation of peritoneum cavity. Peritoneum. Serosa is also made up of the areolar connective tissue. It is tough in its nature, and it is required for its protection. It is having protective covering. It produces the protective covering. So this is the serosa. This is the last part of our GI tract. So here we have discussed the general histology, and also it is also supplied with the nerve supply. If you see, lots of nerve supply is there, especially in case of the submucosa. Here you will find lots of nerve supply. There is the involvement of nerves, the motor nerve, sensory nerve, and the enteric nerves are also there. Especially in case of the small intestine and large intestine, the enteric nerves are involved. Interneurons are also there. So they are having the activity, they are having the capability to produce the contraction and relaxation of our intestine. That is the basic function. It is called motility. In case of gastric motility, intestinal motility. So without that motility, without contraction relaxation, our food can't propel into the next position. So that for that it requires. Okay. Now peritoneum, as we know, it contains the serous membrane. It is lining of abdominopelvic cavity. Visceral peritoneum covers the external surfaces of most digestive organs and is continuous with the parietal peritoneum that lies in the body wall. Actually, this peritoneum cavity is work as a rack of our vital organs or visceral organs. It may be kidney, it may be small intestine, large intestine, stomach, duodenum, jejunum, and large intestine, like that. So here it produces the rack. It holds that organ into that specific positions. So visceral peritoneum is there, which covers the external surface of most digestive organs like small intestine, large intestine, after that stomach, after that liver and spleen, gallbladder, etc., pancreas. Between the two peritoneum is the peritoneal cavity. Now here at this position, just below your large intestine and just above your pubic symphysis bone, there is the peritoneal cavity. That peritoneal cavity may be filled with some fluids, and it may produce the condition like ascites. It is called as ascites or edema. It is also called as peritoneal edema. And in case of some disease, in case of some hormonal disease, in case of hypertension, especially in case of hypertension, or in case of some thyroidal disease related thyroids, so in case of Cushing syndrome or Addison's disease, you will find this part. And you might be aware of that in some patients, in some people, this abdominal part is protrude outside, it come outside. Something is hanging just near your abdomen. Your abdomen comes out too much from your pant. So it is nothing but the ascites, it is nothing but the edema, and it is very worse condition. That person may having hypertension. Now mesentery is the double layer peritoneum which provides roots for BV, lymphatic and nerves. So what is mesentery? Mesentery is nothing but it is the part of peritoneum which holds our duodenum and jejunum. These two intestines, they hold together, and they are holding and attached from the back side also. What they are doing, they are connecting both this jejunum and duodenum. They are holding them because they are supplied with the food supply from the stomach, so their weight may be high. So for that they are holding them properly, and they are also attached from the back side. From back side vertebral column is there, so they are attached to that back side also. So they are maintaining their position. It is called mesentery, and they are also supplied with the lymphatic and nerve supply. Alimentary canal or organs are classified as a retroperitoneal. No mesentery and organs lies posterior to the peritoneum, and the intraperitoneal mesentery and organs lies within the peritoneum. Okay, they are also called as mesocolon. What is that? Which holds our transitional colon and sigmoid colon. They are connecting both the colons. Now here the colon is not available here. Here. So this transverse colon and the sigmoid colon, so they will hold their position, and also they will support them from the back side. In case of the defecation, in case of the evacuation of bowel, we should hold this sigmoid colon in upward direction so that the proper evacuation should be there. So it is the major function of that mesocolon. It is a part of peritoneal cavity. Here, this is the peritoneal cavity that you should know. Now features and functions of mouth, buccal or oral cavity. So this internal part of our mouth, it is called as buccal or oral cavity, which contains our cheeks, mouth, tongue and uvula, our pharynx, larynx. All this cavity is called as buccal cavity. It contains stratified squamous epithelium, vestibule area bounded by lips and cheeks externally, and teeth and gums internally. So that is called that typical part of area called as vestibules. Lips possesses no sweat or oil glands. So in lips there is no sweat or oil glands. Palate, it forms roof of the mouth, soft and hard palate. First there is hard palate behind the teeth, and it is followed by the soft palate, and soft palate is connected with our pharynx, our uvula, pharynx and uvula, and also nose. At superior position it is connected with the nose. After uvula, the nasal orifice is there. So in this fashion, and what is uvula? Uvula is the hanging portion just behind your soft palate. There is the small P-shaped hanging or droplet shaped hanging portion, and when it come out in case of sneezing, when in case of common cold, it touches to your tongue. It is a symbol of common cold. For that, what doctors or physicians are doing, they are taking the spatula and they are making it upwards, or they are just with the help of torch they are open your mouth, and what they are checking your uvula for any infections. If you are infected any bacteria or viruses for this common cold, so definitely your uvula will come down. and what you have to do, you have to take the warm water daily, do the gargle for 30 seconds, repeat it for 3 to 5 minutes. That depends on your condition. In a 3 times in a day in severe condition, or 2 times a day in a normal condition. Okay, so in this fashion uvula is very important. Here you can see this is the position of uvula. This is a soft palate, hard palate. These are the teeth. These are the gums. After that is superior lip. This is the lower lip. Again, this is the gums. If any infection is there to your gums, inflammation is there, it is there called gingivitis. This is the tongue, and this is the position of our salivary gland. There are 3 types of salivary glands are there. One is parotid gland. Where its location? It is just beneath your ear. It is inferior and posterior to your ear. So this position is called as, this is the palatine. So this is called as parotid gland. And second is submandibular gland. Here, this is called submandibular gland. And just below the tongue, there is the sublingual gland. Here you can see it is just above that. So you should know each and every part of your mouth, mug up it again and again, read it again and again, and try to recall all these words. I know these words are very tough to you, but you should recall all these words, because in MCQ, in online examination, any word can ask in the examination. So you should be in position to recall all the words and their locations. What is the location of that typical part of your body? So in this fashion we have discussed. Now, features and functions of tongue. It helps grind food into the bolus. Bolus is the mass of our food. It is the semi-solid mass of our food, and it is required and it is ready for swallowing. It is called bolus, which contains the partially digested food and saliva, because saliva already has been mixed into your food and it has been produced or transformed into the mass. It is called bolus. So it helps from word, and it is sensory organ for taste, because it is supplied with the saliva, and through saliva the taste buds from your tongue can be sensitize the taste of your food, and it is transform that information through the facial nerve and the glossopharyngeal nerve to your cerebral cortex through brain, and you are identifying the typical taste, and we are giving that information to ourselves that this is that taste. We are recalling the memories from the taste. These three surface features are there. Filiform papillae, which don't have any taste buds, they are roughness and grip. Fungiform papillae, which is contain taste buds, and circumvallate papillae, which contains again taste buds. Actually, we all discuss this part into the taste or tongue, into the special senses. Here, this is the tongue. It contains the various taste buds: filiform papillae, fungiform papillae, and circumvallate papillae. And this is the palatine tonsil. There are also 3 types of tonsils which occurs in our mouth. So there is lingual tonsil, palatine tonsil, like that. Now, features and functions of salivary glands. So this part is also associated with your syllabus. It is in your syllabus, so you should focus on this part as well. The main functions of salivary gland is produces and secretes saliva. As we know, in saliva, salivary amylase is there. So from mouth, the process of digestion, absorption starts. So what is function of saliva? It moisten your food materials. It moisten and it try to mix food material into your mouth. It revolves whole food material and it produces the bolus. It cleans the mouth. So when your process of feeding can be completed. So in that condition, what your saliva is doing, it is washing of your mouth. After completion of your meal, you are washing of your mouth, and it transfer that particles of food material into your esophagus, into your stomach. So it cleans your mouth, always cleans your mouth, and naturally it cleans your mouth. No need to again and again take water from outside and clean. What you are doing? When you are doing that, you are unnecessarily wasting your saliva, because saliva is very important for us. It is not excrete part, or it is not waste material of your body. So that's why don't throw saliva. There are certain spitting cobras are there in our society, which they are spitting on the road, spitting on the wall of the house or wall of the offices. It is very bad. And also different color of spitting is there, red spitting or some brown spitting is there. That depends on what material they are churning, they are taking, or they are splitting into their mouth. So that is very bad things. So saliva is good thing for us. Don't throw it outside. So it having very good functions in our body. It cleans our mouth. So cleanliness should be there. Don't decrease the cleanliness. So it cleans your body, it cleans your mouth, it cleans your, because it contains saliva. Saliva also is part of the mucus. It dissolves food chemicals so that they can tasted. So it very fastly dissolve the food materials, and it gives signals to our brain to identification of its taste. It moistens the foods. If food is dry, in that case it release that saliva and it moisten it immediately. It compact it into the bolus, and it transform into the bolus, a mass of the food for swallowing process. It is called deglutition. It begins the chemical breakdown of the food. As I told earlier, it contains the salivary amylase. So especially the starch, it is simplest form of our carbohydrate, which is available into our food. So that starch will immediately start to absorb and digest through the mouth. Through mouth, starch will start to digest. Now types of salivary glands. There are 3 types of salivary glands that I have already explained to you. In that, first is submandibular glands. It founds underneath the mandible. Is the position here at both the position. It is a pair of glands. Here it will find. Actually, all these glands are 3 glands are pair of glands. So here they will release just your at buccal cavity, just above your lower jaw. At this position, here at this position, you will find this. Sublingual glands, it is found just underneath of our tongue. Just below your tongue, there is sublingual gland, and the root is also called as sublingual root. When you are taking some tablets like isoprenaline, it is the antihypertensive tablets, drugs, we have to keep it below the tongue. Below the tongue you should take, or glyceryl nitrate also you should keep it below the tongue. It is the anti-anginal drugs in case of angina pectoris. You don't know that this is, but it is the condition when we are having the myocardial infarction will occur, congestive heart failure may occur. So for that we are taking these drugs and we are keeping it below our tongue. It is called sublingual root. So sublingual gland is there, releasing that saliva. And parotid gland, it is found just below your ear. It is inferior part of our ear. It is anterior to the ear, between masseter and skin. What is masseter? Masseter is this cheek muscle is called as masseter. It is in between your cheek muscle and skin. Saliva travels to oral orifice via ducts from all 3 glands. So here you can see, this is the parotid gland. This is the parotid duct through which it can be released from the upper side, and from lower side there are 2 glands. This is the submandibular tract here, and this is the sublingual tract here. So in this fashion there are 3 types of glands which can be released into your mouth regularly whenever you are starting your meal, you are taking any food. Now composition of saliva is very important. You should know what its composition. Almost 99% part is water. and its pH is 6.75 to 7. It is almost basic to acidic. Up to 7 it is acidic, so it is almost neutral to acidic pH. It contains the various electrolytes. It contains the 6 types of electrolytes: sodium, potassium, chloride, phosphates and bicarbonates. It also contains some dissolved gases. Some dissolved gases are there into your, so that's why in bicarbonate gases are also there. That's why we are also taking the bicarbonated drinks from outside, because it is also having the some composition of saliva. It requires for, or it helps into our digestions if you are taking a small quantity, and not daily regular basis you should take that. Organic substance it contains, for example, urea, uric acid, mucus. Mucus is also very important for digestions. Mucin, it is a protein which requires for our digestion. Salivary amylase, as I told already, salivary amylase is the enzyme which is required for degradation or digestion of our starch. It is the simplest form of our carbohydrates. It also contains the immunoglobulin A. It also contains the bacteriolytic enzymes which do the lysis, which kills the bacteria. It is called bacteriolytic enzymes. It is not static, it is lysis, means they are killing all the bacteria, and it is called as lysozymes. That specific enzyme is called as lysozyme. So mind it well, too much composition is there, so don't forget, fix in your mind. Now, features and functions of teeth. Breakdown into smaller parts increases the surface area of digestion. So what is the function of teeth? It breaks down into the smaller part. It's to the mechanical digestion of our food. Types of teeth: the deciduous teeth, baby teeth, which occurs at the age of 3 to 4, 5, and it stays there up to the age of 11. After 11, 12, it will fall down. They can be removed, replaced by the new teeth, permanent teeth. And the permanent teeth are having 4 types. Incisors, the incisors which are at the anterior part, the 4 layers, above 4 and near and lower 4, this called as incisors. They are required for cutting and shredding. After that, at this corner we are having canines. These canines are piercing and tearing. So in case of tiger is having largest length of canines. So it is also almost having 4 to 5 inch of canine. Tiger is having largest length. After tiger, lion is there. After lion, there is a leopard, jaguar. After that, cheetah, and after that other animals are there. So in big cats we are having these canines at larger size. Why it required? For tearing purpose. For tearing purpose it requires. Molars. Molars are for grinding purpose. Molars are at the next to the canines. There are a pair of molars is there. They are also required for grinding and making the food into the small particles. And premolars, grinding and crushing all the food materials. Now, tooth structure. Actually, we should know what is the structure of food. That's why we are discussing it. It is not too much having that much concentrated into our syllabus. Okay, it's having crown, exposed portion of the tooth covered by the enamel which covers dentine. So this is the external part of our teeth. It is called crown and it is made up of enamel. What is enamel? Enamel is the hardest part of our teeth and which protects our teeth, our internal part of teeth. It is very hard. It is made up of calcium. It covers the internal part, that is dentine. Root, internal portion that beneath the gums and is anchored by the periodontal ligaments. So here this is the root parts. From here That's why if root is going to be affected, we are doing the root canal. In that case, we have to do root canal. If it is the gums are affected, and it can be transformed into the pyorrhea, which is the inflammation or infection of our gums. So in that condition, we have to do the root canal. So this whole root is going to be affected. So we should protect our teeth, because teeth are the part of digestive system. So if your tooth or teeth are good in condition, means your digestive system is also good. Deglutition and the pharynx. What is deglutition? It is the process of swallowing. It is a systemic process of swallowing which involves into the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is having very great role into our deglutition. Oropharynx and the laryngopharynx are common passageways for food and air. Pharynx contains stratified squamous epithelium, and here the whatever the food bolus has been developed into our mouth, so that will come here into the pharynx. So from the pharynx it will come here into next part. So this is the part near the epiglottis. There is a sphincter of our esophagus. So here it is closed now, here it is open, and after that, when the epiglottis will cover your respiratory tract, and it will open your esophageal tract, and at that position, whatever the food material is there, it won't allow to go into your respiratory tract. It should come directly into your esophagus. And in this patient, now it has been come into esophagus, and again this sphincter of esophagus will closed. In this patient, it is the normal process which occurs regularly when we are ingesting any food material, and it will proceed for swallowing. So this is the way the process of deglutition occurs. It is also involved by the medulla oblongata part of our brainstem, in which the medulla part deglutition is involved. The chemoreceptor trigger zone is there, which is omitting center, which is involved into our deglutition along with the vagus nerve, which you have already studied in last chapter. So features and functions of the esophagus. Muscular tube that propels food to stomach. Bolus enters stomach through esophageal hiatus. Skeletal muscle, upper third for swelling. The skeletal muscles are there, as we are told. The skeletal muscle is available here, and smooth muscle, lower third of the for peristalsis, for moving it forward. The continued episodes of contraction and relaxation are called as peristalsis, and movement is called as peristaltic movement. So this word, don't forget, is called peristalsis. It is also called as motility, esophageal motility. Esophageal glands, it produces mucus to lubricate the bolus. So it provides the moist environment to proceed that ciliary movement. Ciliary movement means forward process. Suppose if you keep something here, any particle if you keep into our mucosa inside your mouth or pharynx or here, so it will move forward in downward direction. It is called ciliary movement. It continuously do that. We have done one practical on frog. We have kept one particle of grain particle on the part of esophagus, and after 30 minutes it have moved toward the stomach. We have actually done that in our practical. So here we can find out their movement will occur. So it contains the mucus to lubricate the bolus, esophageal sphincter which prevent backflow into the oral cavity. So whatever food material which we have already swallowed, it should not backflow into the mouth. What will happen? Whatever the acid, sometimes you know that sometimes the acid material which is in your stomach, it can come out. Why it come out? Due to the leakage into your esophageal sphincter. It allows to do backflow into the mouth. That's why the sour or salty content of our stomach, they are coming into our mouth you can test when we are having the flatulence. So that's why the sphincter should be firmly closed so that it should avoid the backflow into the oral cavity. Cardiac sphincter, it prevents the backflow into the esophagus. So that cardiac sphincter is there, which is just before the stomach. It is the neck of the stomach, it is a gateway of the stomach. There also you will find the skeletal muscle is there, a group of skeletal muscle is there which is attached to your cardiac sphincter, and also which will prevent the backflow into the esophagus. So here two gates are there. One is cardiac sphincter, which is near your stomach, and esophageal sphincter, which is near your pharynx, which is required for your deglutition. So here you can see the circular muscle contracts, the bolus of food is there which can be comes. So here it relax. Now here it will contract, means close, the food will go into your stomach. Now here again the relaxed muscle is there and the gastrophageal sphincter will open. Here the cardiac sphincter will open and it will enter into your stomach. So in this fashion, and this is the pyloric sphincter, this is the cardiac sphincter. So in this fashion it will get entered into your stomach. So this is the cardiac sphincter. So here it will contracted, after that it will relax here, after here it will relax, but here it has been contract, means it close, the sphincter has been closed. So in this fashion the movement of our food bolus occurs into your esophagus and it will travel towards the stomach. So here you can see the macroscopic of our esophagus. As I told, all the layers are same. At mucosa contains epithelial cells, after that lamina propria, and the muscularis, it contains the stratified squamous epithelium. After that submucosa, it contains areolar connective tissue, and the muscularis, which contains the circular and longitudinal layer, and adventitia, it is a fibrous connective tissue. It is the only specialty in esophagus. Only esophagus contain adventitia. No any alimentary canal, no any gastrointestinal tract part contain this adventitia. Understood? Now digestive processes in mouth, pharynx and esophagus. So mouth processes ingestion, mechanical digestion, initiation and propulsion. Mastication means cutting into your small parts and mixing of the saliva into that. After chewing, chewing. After that, pharyngeal processes, deglutition, swallowing, voluntary blood phase, voluntary buccal phase, involuntary pharyngeal esophageal phase, and esophageal processes which involve into the peristalsis. So this all part we have already discussed in details in early slides. Okay. Now here the process of deglutition, how it occurs. So inside your mouth we are having this bolus here. Now the pharynx parts has been relaxed. Here it has been already closed. So the epiglottis will close now here. After closing epiglottis means it won't allow. Now epiglottis will close this respiratory tract. Now it has been closed the esophageal tract. Now it will close the respiratory tract. This is the respiratory tract. This is the trachea, this part. Yes. Now the respiratory tract has been closed and the esophageal tract has been open. Now this bolus will get entered into our esophagus. Now next process, once the bolus has been transported inside your esophagus, immediately this sphincter, esophageal sphincter will closed, so that no backflow should be there. Whatever the bolus is there, it should not come again into your mouth. No reversal should be there. So again we will see from mouth will come And how it process occurs, it is called peristaltic movement, peristalsis. It is continuous episodes of contraction, relaxation. Here contraction, and here at this point relax, isn't it? Again contact to this part. This part earlier it was relaxed, now here it is contracted. Again move forward, now bolus has been come here, again it has been contracted here, but relax here and relax here, so that it is having rich supply of nerve, due to which it is doing this involuntary contraction by smooth muscles. It has supplied with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves, due to which continue release of these neurotransmitters, for example acetylcholine, after 5-HT, bradykinin, prostaglandin. These are the various autocoids and neurotransmitters which are responsible for continued contraction and relaxation of this gut, of this esophagus or intestine, or your any part, any tract of your GIT. So my dear students, in this fashion we have completed the first part of our GIT. I hope you understood all. If you have any queries, you can discuss with me.